Hey, happy day 849 of What You Up To Now. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, needing a little more coffee and thinking about the idiom and the expression down to earth and wondering, I never really thought about this before. I always thought I was just me, but I never thought of it on a scale of like 1 to 10 on how down to earth I am, how realistic or practical or sensible I am. Because when I was younger, I would say I wasn't very realistic or practical or sensible at all. I was, a little tomboy kid that ran around asking kids if they were friendly. My mom tells stories about every new person that came around the neighborhood. And then we had that house on the corner where all the neighborhood kids came to play. I had a great mom. She was always making us treats and Kool-Aid and making sure we were all taken care of. And this was back in the 60s, in the days of the stay-at-home mom. So she was home with us girls, and there were 4 of us girls, so all the neighborhood kids came and played at our house. We had a really nice swing set in the backyard, and we had a big backyard. We didn't have a garage back then, but we had a big backyard. So, and we were on the corner of 2 streets where there were lots of families and lots of kids. So our house was that house where all the kids in the neighborhood came to play. And I was definitely not the practical, sensible, realistic one. I was the one that was always pushing the edge and off, on adventure games, leading us sometimes astray, according to my mother and my father. So I never thought about how down to earth I am. Although I was very outdoorsy and I loved to be outside and playing, I never thought of whether I was down to earth or not. I just thought I was being me. And like everybody else, as we get older, who we are tends to get beaten out of us, right? And we lose that magical sense of wonder and curiosity and fun as we get older and older, and we have experiences that teach us to be more practical and more realistic and more sensible. And I've gotten many the lecture about being sensible and realistic and practical, both in my personal life and my professional life. I spent over a quarter century in corporate America, and I never really was that person that fit in 100% to the corporate lifestyle. I always had a business of my own on the side, so I always thought of business and my life slightly differently than all the people that I work with, because I could see it from both sides. I could see how owners and business owners and the higher management levels of the organization were thinking and why they were making decisions and choices, because I had my own little business on the side, and I knew how I thought and how I made decisions differently than if I was just working in that business. So I had that dual perspective, which sometimes it helped me. A lot of times it helped me. It helped me to move through the ranks quickly. It helped me to advance in my career very quickly. But it didn't necessarily mean that I was in alignment with my peers all the time, because there's truly a different mindset between being an employee and being a business owner. Being a participant in someone else's activity and dream and business is very different than being the owner and the guide and the steward of a dream and a vision and a business of your own. It's just 2 totally different mindsets. So a lot of times I was accused of not being down to earth and not being practical or sensible or realistic. But as I became a teenager, I studied engineering in college. I became an engineer as well as management and marketing, because I knew I wanted to have my own big business someday. I wanted to have my own company, and I wanted to have a well-rounded education. So that was pretty practical, pretty sensible. And people always said, well, it's not realistic to have your own business, but whatever. But since I'd had one since I was 13, I didn't really buy into other people's versions of how I should believe or what I should think about. But I thought today, down to earth is the expression for the Supersize Your Business segment. And I'm like, I've never really sat down and given it any thought. How down to earth am I? How down to earth are my businesses, or were my businesses, or is my business now? And down to earth to me means, how rooted are you? How solid is your foundation? How connected are you to your core values and what's really important to you? As an individual or a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, how in alignment are you in your business dealings and in your business choices and selections and activities with your core values, with the things that are important to you, are really important to you? So I spent a lot of years chasing after money and business and success and things that I thought were important to me, at the expense of my health, my relationships, and other things that were really the reason I was chasing after those things in the first place. So I have not always been, and Those are the things. When people tell you the things that you should do, those are the things that they consider practical, realistic, and sensible. But they aren't necessarily the things that are practical, realistic, and sensible for you. Like the things that are practical, realistic, and sensible for me, to me, are different than the things my family, my sisters, even my kids would think are realistic and practical for me. And it's definitely a big difference between what the ex-husband thinks is realistic for me and what I think is realistic for me. And we tend to be really impacted by other people, even if we think we aren't. We still are. I like to think I'm fiercely independent and not impacted by other people, but I still am. We are. It's human nature to have a modicum of concern or interest in what other people think. We don't want to go through this life just 100% not caring about other people. And it's not about not caring about other people. It's about doing what's right for us and respecting ourselves as much or more than we care about the opinions of other people. And I say we 100% respect every human being on the planet, but we still need to do what's right for us. So to me, doing what's right for me, being authentic, living in alignment with my core values, setting things up in my life that feel right and good for me, creating my own reality that is right for me to continue to grow and contribute and have a positive impact on the world around me, that's what feels right to me and in alignment with me. And when I'm doing that, I think I'm down to earth. I think I'm very grounded. When I'm not doing that, I don't feel good. And that's an indication to me that I am not in alignment. I'm not doing what I should be doing for me. Not for the rest of the world necessarily, not for my sisters, not for my mom, not for my kids, but for me. So, down to earth. Would love to know in the comments below, how do you rate yourself on down to earth? Say 0 or 1 is really, really low. You're not down to earth at all. You're not realistic. And you're probably not in alignment with what's really important to you. You're not living your authentic self. And guess what? We've all been there, right? Where we're doing what we think we should do, not necessarily what is right for us. I'm here to tell you that that will kill you. Or it might not, but that can kill you faster than you would otherwise be going to leave the planet. Right? A personal, practical, one-on-one experience with that. So how down to earth are you? 1 being not down to earth, not alignment, not rooted or grounded in the earth at all. 10 being as grounded as you could possibly be. You know, being 100% yourself all the time, no matter what's going on around you, even during a pandemic. So that's our Supersize Your Business today. Fun Day challenge today was kind of interesting because I didn't quite get it. I mean, do you ever read something sometimes and you're like, all right, I understand the words, I see it, but I don't understand the message that the author is trying to get across. I don't get it. I don't get where they're coming from. That's how the fun challenge was for me today. And it was just about rereading books. And I was thinking, oh, I never reread books. And then I realized at the end of it that I have read my children and my granddaughter the same books over and over and over again to the point where I have them memorized. And it's just a matter of turning the pages so that the kids can see the pictures. So I didn't think that I reread books, but there's several books that I've definitely reread over and over and over again and that I have memorized. So I didn't think I did, because when I read a book, I'll start to read it again and then I'll remember instantly that I've read it, and then it comes from my subconscious back to my conscious and I don't need to read it again. It feels redundant and boring. And when there's millions and millions and millions of books to choose from, why would I want to read the same books over and over and over again? With the exception of Think and Grow Rich, I can always go back and read that book. Or I don't really go back and reread the whole book. I've done that once, I think. But I read sections of it when it's appropriate to something that I'm doing in my life or I want to do in my life. I'll be like, oh, I think I read that in this book. And I'll go find that book and I'll look for that section. But I'll only just pick and choose things out of books. I won't reread the entire book again. I think life's too short. If we want to read all the books we want to read, I want to not read the same ones over and over and over again. Get Up and Go Challenge, day 2 today. Yesterday was kind of the introduction overview day. Today is the S for story and situation, and how you analyze and look at what's going on around you, where you are, and where you want to be. Using, of course, a method that I learned years and years and years ago, the who, what, where, when, why, and how of questioning, using questions to evaluate what your current situation is, and then to set out where do you want to be, because that's your story. The story you're telling yourself right now is where you are, but we want to create the story of where we want to be, because that's the story we want to be moving toward. So let's Get Up and Go challenge today in the SOAP model. Of course, we've got our SOAP model for teaching people how to overcome, how to deal with any obstacle, any challenge, any roadblock that ever comes their way. Because if we have a process for handling emergencies and problems and situations that we automatically default to, we will always make better decisions and we will get through those challenges faster than if we just deal with each situation in a reactionary mode when it is upon us. Millions of people have found themselves in that exact predicament right now. They've lost their jobs, they've lost their businesses, their kids are at home for months at a time and they're having to be homeschooled. They're having to actually be parents 24/7, and it's probably more time than most people have ever spent with their family members and ever will spend with their family members going forward as life goes back to being busy and active again. And I believe personally that our life and our worlds have been forever changed by this situation, this pandemic. And going forward, many people will just go back to the same old because they didn't do anything but just sat and waited for the world to go back to normal. And so they will force and make some things go back to the way they were. Whether that's the best way for things to be or not, that's what will happen. I'm seeing that happen in my little town right now as my state has opened up, but the bordering states have not. And it's just like a free-for-all in my little town. And so it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks how that unfolds and what impact it has. I am crossing my fingers and praying that there is no impact and that, we don't have a surge in COVID cases in our county, because we were actually very low. Yet we're right across the border from one of the biggest cities in the neighboring state, and they had it was the worst rate in their state. Yet all of those people that have been cooped up are coming over to our state and going hog wild crazy. It's actually kind of embarrassing in some situations that there isn't a better plan in place, and individual business owners, some are doing a great job of managing their business and I say keeping their employees in their business safe. Others, free for all, and the free for alls make me a little sad that people are selfish enough to not care that they're they may be, we don't know, right? That's the big thing, we don't know for sure. They may be negatively impacting other people and causing, more harm than good. You never know. We don't know, right? We never know what's going to happen in our lives. So, Get Up and Go challenge. Waiting for my granddaughter to come. Yesterday was a holiday, so I didn't have her, and I miss her. So I'm excited for her to come today so we can hang out and play. Because guess what? She keeps my head from the clouds. She reminds me of the importance of magic and wonder and curiosity and excitement over ordinary things that as adults we take for granted. So I love hanging out with her. Have an amazing day. If I can help you in any way, hop on to Get Up and Go challenge, 11 a.m. Central Time. Every day will be live this week and through the weekend and a few days next week, because there's so many things I want to share and add value to people so that we can be more grounded in what it is that we know we need to do right now, no matter what's going on in our life. Have an awesome day, and I'll, of course, see you tomorrow.